Game 75, Arsenal versus Bayern Munich on the 9th of April 2024, titled My Alter Ego. It's off to the Gary Briggs studio in a Champions League quarter-final corker first leg between Arsenal and Bayern Munich. It has been a relatively pleasant day and the drive-in sees my mind wander. Now, I have spoken in a previous autobiographical pod of my love, when growing up, of comic books, and today's match throws up one of my favourite things in those books, and indeed now in a local big brand name supermarket. Things that look like a famous brand or name that sounds like things. That's what I'm talking about. Back in the day, we had here in Oxford a Sunday market at the Greyhound track, and at the time men were generally heading away from pants to boxers. Now, we all know Calvin Klein were the must-have name in boxers, but they were expensive. So on the market you could buy Alvin Schwein's look the same but a fraction of the cost boxers, and they were bought quite simply by the barrow loads. In my childhood comic Roy of the Rovers, they played Everpool, a mixture of Everton and Liverpool. Boxes by Alvin Schwein were worn, and baked beans by any brand but not Heinz appeared on our plates. We all told our mums they didn't taste the same, and she insisted they came from the same factory but had a different label attached. Peter Kay's Roller Cola. Great sketch, unbelievable comedian. But, and I do have a point, as I will reveal my alter ego later. But what I couldn't get my head around was the flagrant copying of big brand items, and this supermarket which basically trades on lookalike products. There is no mistaking they are dressed to impress by looking distinctly the same. Taste-wise and quality-wise, well, who knows? The incessant world of internet accounts and passwords basically does my nut in, said very Danny Dyer-esquely. Don't have the same password, it may get compromised. I totally understand that. But a one-off every 6-month site you return to requires a mental dexterity to remember such password that is beyond most human beings' capabilities. On average, in my personal email account, every day I get around 60 emails, of which at least 55 are adverts from companies I once used way back when. I must remember the next time I purchase something in person from a shop to say, when asked, do you want a paper receipt or an email sent? Think of the planet, sir. I'll have a fucking paper one because I've bought what I want and don't want your ever giving fucking free mail adverts coming through. The environment or my sanity? You decide where I am on this one now. So, Arsenal versus Bayern Munich should have the makings of a good game. A few little intrinsic stories as well. Harry Kane, formerly of Spires, Arsenal's North London rivals, back to face his sworn enemies for many a year. Gnabry, a former gunner, returning, and the general first leg setup required by Arsenal before heading to the Allianz Arena for the second leg. Bayern in European football are formidable at homes unless they are facing Mike Walker's Norwich City side of 1993. The Germans only defeated their former ground in the Olympic Stadium in European football when they were humbled by the Canaries. Anyway, I digress. Sound check completed and my team sheets dealt with, plus some facts I might need. The game itself was a good game to get my commentary teeth into. Saka scores from a White pass and the Emirates is bouncing before White himself has a chance, smothered by Neuer's lower abdomen, or his taters in other words. Arsenal in the ascendancy, but back came Munich and Gnabry fired in and equalised to silence the cauldron. You know, you don't have to say it, but there are a number of fans who know that a former player is always going to score against their former employees, often leading, but not all the time, to the "I'm sorry I've scored against you" celebration. Nabbers, as I would like to call him, but will never get the chance, does though celebrate. It's 1-1. It was never going to be straightforward for Arsenal, but they have been pegged back until the proverbial party-pooping moment when Sane's mazy, weaving, slaloming run is halted by a lazy Saliba leg. Penalty! Well, I glanced quickly at the referee, Glenn Nyberg, and I have to compliment him here. He is in full crouch, whistle-blowing, straightness of the arm to signal the spot kick. It was poise personified. You know, occasionally in the background at home I hear the judges on Strictly Come Dancing talking about body movements, heel or toe points or hand position and think, what a load of old bollocks. But now I get it. Nyberg had nailed the penalty awarding position, so much so that I think he could have passed his A-levels in pose control at the refereeing school. It was majestic. There was no Mike Dean at Spurs over the top pointing to the sky after they scored. His body language simply said, "Don't question me, it's a penalty." Authoritative body control and poise technique. I will be running classes on this shortly. Kane, the England captain and former Spurs forward, rolls the resultant spot kick in, and the general consensus of many Arsenal fans right at that point is, we don't actually like that person. Oh dear, now the Emirates was a little bit of a burble in terms of crowd noise. Sporadic outbreaks of chanting, but generally a wrought, anxious watching public gazing down on the field of play. Everyone from a gunner's persuasion was now running through their heads that a draw will at least give us something in the second leg. Others contemplating it's over, and others who were saying get one and we can get two. Enter Arteta's substitute Trossard, a talented Belgian footballer whose eyes always make me think he isn't getting enough sleep. They always look a little panda-like. He slots in the equaliser and the Emirates is back on its feet. But then as the game heads into the last 5 minutes of a minimum time to be added at the end of the game, comes Sakanoya. Not an oriental sounding dish, but a coming together inside the Munich penalty area of Bukayo Saka, a little known country from Ostrika, and Manuel Neuer, the new instruction booklet for your car stereo. Back in the land of Roy the Rovers. Oh, and I think I'm in trouble now with that last comment. Anyway, the coming together doesn't get Nyberg's penalty poise. Instead, it gets the final whistle, leaving VAR to decide what had occurred. The answer was Nyberg was acquitted and found not guilty of an incorrect decision, although he didn't get to ref the second leg. Read into that what you will. Buoyed by a good game, and after packing up I head home, and you're probably wondering why the title of my alter ego. Well, I have spoken of Alan Schmein's pants, or maybe Everpool, or even Irish coffee liqueur which looks suspiciously like Bailey's in a well-known supermarket. Well, this whole episode was written and spoken to you courtesy of the name that started my mindful meanderings. Yours sincerely, Bayern Munich. Game 76. The Oxford Spires versus the Ipswich Witches, 11th of April 2024, titled Crowded House. I head off to the Oxford Stadium for some coverage of Premier League Speedway, and on arriving at the press area at the stadium realised that things felt a little awkward. As I write or speak, you only have my perspective on things. Honest appraisal, but yes, it's from my angle. I grew up in a time of the back pages of your local newspaper being king. Early editions and late editions giving you a glimpse of breaking news. No social media in those days, and local teams' commentaries normally being the mainstay of a hospital broadcaster. And yes, youngsters will tell me that things have changed, Grandaddy-o. But dexterity is a thing as well, as time is money. Hold that thought. I created a local newspaper. That is newspaper, but instead of P-A-P-E-R, that's P, capital A, capital P, capital P-E-R. So newspaper. An all-in-one place to get local sport, to save visiting various sites and replacing old-fashioned words, whether it be in print or audio, with short videos. It's a concept I really believe in. It needs marketing and it needs getting into people's hands and mindsets. But today was the day that tipped this old fella into a different mindset. I was there to commentate my way, or an Oxonian way, on the heats of Speedway, to transpose onto the heats that would be sent to me via Oxford TV, who cover the Speedway via live streaming. It means I have to commentate on all 15 heats, as I don't know which ones will be put forward. But tonight there is a hefty local BBC radio presence and a full live streaming team on hand, and very little space. I end up on a balcony next to the scoreboard man and his son, who, in fairness, to a degree, doesn't look as though he wants to be there. The scoreboard guy's a lovely chap, but I feel my role in his highs tonight is unwarranted. Manuel Neuer? No, paranoia. The local newspaper back in the day had a day of different local sports coverage, from darts to gymnastics, Aunt Sally, football, cricket, boxing, you name it, it got covered. Where the demise of the newspaper saw the local sports desk reduce in numbers as cost-cutting hit, and to a degree the same could be said of the local regional BBC radio stations. There is not enough man-hours or airtime to do justice to the local sports scene. So, step forward, Mr. Entrepreneur. But tonight, Even though the figures suggest otherwise via YouTube, I felt nobody actually cares about local sport. It has become reduced to headline stories only. Tonight's Speedway meeting was one of significance for the local radio station, and yes, they do cover the Speedway with live commentary on a digital platform or the internet. Or you could pay $12.99 for a live stream ticket. But a walking, talking, viewable highlight package in a local sports place similar to the Green Mail of yesteryear here in Oxford, well, today I realised or felt that nobody really gives a shit. Maybe I'm late to the party, but people's outlooks have changed. Life is now about sensationalism, headline-grabbing incidents, not normality or a straightforward report piece. It just doesn't cut the mustard. Yes, it has its place for some, but for most, unless a world record is broken or a disaster has befallen something or someone, Team A beating Team B in a routine meeting doesn't gird the loins of people. So tonight I felt there was a degree of why are you bothering? I bothered because I care about persons who cannot do what youngsters do in a millisecond with a waft of a thumb or a finger on a smartphone or tablet. I do it because I thought wrongly it appears that collating sports information in this case would be easier and more accessible for those who were invested in it. But the dawning of realisation had caught up with me. I was there because of the significance of the meeting, as was everyone else. Of course they'll be nowhere to be seen when it's maybe a trivial sports story. But after recently helping out a local rugby club during its most successful season ever, to see them use me and move on to the so-called big boys when they wanted a piece of the action, well, primarily the climax of a great season, does hit home and hurt. We offered a no risk for some reward package, but no, they have, through a thought process or maybe a dog in a manger attitude, decided to pursue other routes. I stared down from my lofty position knowing that I didn't need to be there. My uniqueness of commentary style and wit wasn't required, and that demographic that wanted some of what was available tonight could get it by paying or searching for free. Maybe my old-timer thought processes dressed up in a modern-day social media technique was hitting the wrong spot. In my summary of the population in my mind, the 15 to 20-year-olds can fly from media source to media source in an instant to garner whatever information they want. 20 to 40-year-olds are pretty much the same, but they may prioritise their respective searches and not be so expansive. 40 to 60-year-olds will still occasionally be conventional radio listeners, and they too will have a narrower search on their smartphones or tablets, whilst older ones will still listen to the wireless, get a paper, and are a lot more limited in terms of usage of smartphones and tablets. But we forget those that cannot afford smartphones and tablets, or maybe those who cannot afford the data packages, and the paywalls piss everybody off. So my mental balancing act in my skull had fell off the edge. Maybe I do look through other people's eyes a fool, and they say there is no fool like an old fool. I puffed my chest out and continued, and then head off quicker than normal, and a wee bit embarrassed. The above is the truth. I honestly thought people would be interested in getting something for free and assist in local sports. Well, now for me, I can sit back and think I tried with little or no assistance and got good figures. Surely you will say that figures sway or fly in the face of your diatribe above. Yes, but after a while, you can no longer swim against the tide and grow tired. There is no help. There is only short-termism in the world today. Look at the buildings we build. They're not long-term architectural splendour and brilliance anymore. They are purposeful structures whose demolition after use is totally acceptable. Anyway, the Speedway match was brilliant, a real spectacle and a thriller till the final heat. The Witches overcame the Premier League new boys, the Spires, and as an advert for Speedway was everything you would want. Overtaking, back-to-front racing, competitive contests. I sit back in the van with my knee screaming after standing up for too long, and whilst I wait for it to settle, I watch the footage and listen to my commentary. I check my notes to see what heats I think will be sent and listen back to the playback for level, etc. before turning the key and heading for home. I get home and continue to feel embarrassed in front of my wife. She had seen me disappear out the door at 6ish that evening to undertake a futile commentary. And she knew that my efforts to help out were not actually being acknowledged in such a way that I could accept them as a bartered payment. With a heavy heart at the realisation that a worthwhile idea of mine was about to fall on its sword, I still had the editing time ahead of me tomorrow, when I will pop some picture-in-picture commentary box footage over the heats as something different when the clean heats are sent over. Thank goodness, as I shut my eyes, it's my time that has been expended and not cash on this labour of love. An experience in a crowded house or commentary box have finally awakened me to smelling the coffee.